Excited about tonight's guest. Tonight we have Brother John Schnyder with over 14 years of boots on the ground experience. John isn't just a name in the game. He's trying to own the board. He's the driving force behind a successful construction company. He's a realtor and an active investor with over 18 rental properties in his personal portfolio and growing. So we want to get into exactly how he started. We want to get into how he's growing. We want to get into some of the challenges and struggles that he's going through right now and today, some of the same challenges that we're going through right now, and how he's overcoming those challenges. So I want everybody to welcome in John Schnyder tonight.
Thank y'all.
Welcome in. So this is extra special. I knew there was some type of glow about you. We found out today that he graduated from St. Aug, so he's an alumni just like me, and also graduating from Tulane in December. So congratulations on that. Congratulations on that. So John, how did you even get started in real estate?
So, I mean, Emil was laughing about it a few minutes ago. I'm the last two of my dad's kids. So my dad had me, he was 54. I have a younger sister, she's 30. But so of course at 54, you're more mature than you are at 20, 30. So I pretty much soaked up the game from him. Since I was maybe 4 years old, he started buying property from New Orleans, the city auction, civic auction.
You go.
Oh.
Just make it.
Oh, facts.
All right.
So he started buying property off the city auction. And by the time I was maybe 13, which was the year of Hurricane Katrina, he had over 52 rental properties in the city of New Orleans. So we ended up, a majority of them flooded. We ended up going to La Place where he had other properties, so we stayed there. He stayed for about a month, came back, and he was working for the Corps of Engineers. I moved back December, maybe 4 months after Katrina, and I ended up going to the Max. So it was a school that they had put together for St. Aug, St. Mary's, and Xavier Prep. And when I got back, I didn't know that I wouldn't be staying with him. I would be staying in the FEMA trailer by myself. So I ended up getting a car. I would drive to school every morning, illegally basically, and I started seeing like a lot of properties that was damaged, that was tore up around the city. And I called him and I was like, hey, look, my brother had started wholesaling maybe 2002, maybe 2003. So I would see a lot of the properties and I would call him. I had no knowledge of it, didn't know nothing about it, but I was maneuvering around these areas where I saw the properties at. So I would reach out to them. They basically would get the addresses from me, wouldn't show me how to do none of it. So it was like, man, kind of being selfish to a point. So I ended up finishing that school year. And the following year, I ended up sitting down with my dad and we had like a conversation. And he was like, basically telling me like his portfolio when he passed away would be mine. And I'm like, well, I don't know nothing about the business. I see you going out doing this, doing that, but it's like, you're not teaching me none of it. So my senior year of high school, graduation was coming around. And it was like, I already had a car. So I had a car when I came back from Katrina. I ended up getting another car my junior year. And senior year, he was like, what you want for graduation? And me thinking, I'm like, well, I already got a car, so I don't know what I want. So he ended up giving me a duplex. The duplex was the home that I grew up in. So me and Steve was talking about this earlier. So the chain that I have is actually the very first house, the house that I lived in, which was a duplex. I lived on one side with my dad, my mom, my sister living next door. So this was the first property I sold when I basically got into the game myself. I was gifted it my senior year of high school, and I sold it in 2011. And I was 19 years old. That was the very first flip I had ever did. And it was with the help of him. And he wanted me to go to school. College wasn't for me. So it was like, it was like I made over $100,000 flipping my first property at 19. So it was like, what I'm going to school for, like why? And I had a lot of friends that was working, had jobs, and it's like $20 an hour, $15 an hour. Like, what can I do with that? I can't do nothing with it. Like, I mean, after I made that first lump sum of money, it was like, the skies was the limit, basically. So my dad told me, he was like, well, you going to school? And I'm like, going to school? Like, I don't want to do it. So I enrolled at Xavier, of course. Coming from St. Aug, it was all boys. It's like, you get around all these women and it's like school. So I ended up basically my first semester, I literally had 4 classes and I had 4 Fs. And my dad was like, bro, like, what are you doing? Like, I'm not constantly paying for you to go to school if you basically gonna flunk out. So what I did was, me and him kind of had a disagreement and kind of had sort of like got into it, and it was like a feud for me, but not for him. So I kind of was like staying my distance. And I had a car accident, and someone ran a stop sign. It was an Enterprise vehicle, and T-boned my truck and flipped it over. So I got a nice settlement from that. And I said, look, without him, I'm gonna go ahead and do it myself. So what I did was, I took the money that I had no experience prior, because the first one that I sold was basically him walking me through it. Like, hey, look, you're doing this, you're doing that. Yeah. So I really had no experience. So I went out, got a contractor, didn't even call him to ask him, because he had a construction company. So I went and got my own contractor. I bought a house, renovated it. Once we finished renovation, it was like, I basically put the house together as if I was moving into the house. So what I did was, I went and bought all these gold faucets, nice chandeliers, and it's time to close. I knew nothing about comps, knew none of that. So it was like, we get to the closing table. Well, before we get to the closing table, the agent tells me, she's like, hey, look, this house is real nice, but you're only gonna be able to sell it for about $200,000. I'm like, 200,000? Like, I'm in it about 180,000. So it's like, it's a waste of my time. So we get to the closing table. I ended up thinking I was making 20 grand. By the time I paid fees, I walked away with like $2,800. I'm like, no. So I didn't tell my dad about it. I told my brother about it. Of course, he told my dad about it. And it became like this, basically like the laugh of the family. Like, you know, like, you basically have me and you went out and tried to do it on your own. But my thing was, I wanted to show him that I could do it without him. And in actuality, I should have never did it, you know. But that was a learning experience. So after that, from then on, it was like, call pops. You know? Right. So my second one, the next one I did, I actually bought it from David Tamala. I was telling you, Betsy, which is David's wife. So the next 3 properties I actually bought from David Tamala, which is David's. Well, he was working with David's wife, and it was in the East area, and it was all cash deal. So growing up, it's like, where I grew up at, it was like, I would say a poor neighborhood, so to say. So it wasn't like a suburban area. But my dad was, for the area, I felt like we were like too wealthy to be living in the area. My dad was like real tight, real frugal, and he would not spend no money. So it's like, bro, like, you got us living around here. We living in a shotgun house. It's like, it's ridiculous, you know. So what happened was, so I ended up buying those properties from David, and we went in and we did the renovation on them. My dad basically told me, hey, look, this was 2015, and he ended up getting dementia in 2016. So in 2015, it kind of like slowed down to where it was like, I was getting basically, I wasn't getting the knowledge that I thought I would have got in 2015, because he was kind of declining. So my brother told me, he said, man, listen, whatever dad told you, don't listen to him. He said, I've been working with him since we came back in 2005 with the core engineers, and it's 11 years, like 10, 11 years later, and he's basically, like, he remembers some stuff, but he don't remember some stuff. So I'm thinking, basically, my brother's telling me this because I had just bought 3 properties, and he had maybe one, I think he had 1 or 2 that he had that was rentals at the time. So I'm thinking he telling me this because he's trying to partner with me on these deals and kind of screw me out of my money, because I had no idea about it. So I'm like, yeah, all right. So I still listened to my dad, got the advice from my dad. We ended up selling one of the properties before we even finished the property, we sold it. And I ended up making like $65,000 off it, the very first one. I made 65 grand off it. And I'm like, man, like, the area where I bought it was in the East, in between Morrison and Haynes, on like going toward Mishu, but on I don't know how to explain it, but it's like on the, you know where the Dollar Tree is on Bullard and Haynes, right? So they right on it's a subdivision to the right hand side of that, where we bought all 3 of the properties, and I ended up doing 65 grand on that first one. The second one, we ended up the first one we sold before it even hit the market. So we hadn't had floors in, we hadn't had sheetrock done, and I kind of felt like I'm like, well, yeah, we sold this one for $210. I know for a fact it sold before it hit the market. We could sell the other ones for about $300 grand. Of course, that didn't happen. We sold them for about $260. But to make a long story short, it's like the knowledge that I was soaking, that I thought I was soaking from my dad, that I ended up 5 years later thinking I was soaking from my dad. It was like I waited too late, you know. So it got to the point to where the area where I grew up is like a lot of families around that area. You have like a lot of elder people. They would have 4 or 5 properties in the neighborhood, and they would leave them for their grandkids. Grandkids can't afford the insurance, can't afford the taxes, so they end up losing them. So I ended up buying 2 properties from a close friend of mine that family went through a succession, and he ended up losing the properties. But I mean, I kind of felt bad buying them because it's like, you're one of my friends, you know? It's like, and instead of me, I guess, trying to assist them with the process, I kind of felt like I bought the properties and kind of like undercut them, you know? So it's like a lot of the stuff that I do now, I tell a lot of people, like, I mean, me being in the position that I'm in, I'm 33 years old, I have 5 kids. My oldest is 16. I had my first, I almost got put out of saying off for my first kid. So a lot of people, they believe in the rental aspect of it. I don't. I mean, I used to. Now I don't, because I feel like with the way the city of New Orleans is going, it's like it's like fighting an uphill battle. You got $5,500 a year insurance. You got another, let's say, $2,500 a year in property taxes. You had $7,500 a year. Let's say you're renting this house. Most people not in a position that I'm in to be able to pay cash for a property. So let's say you have a mortgage. Let's say you're making $1,500 a month, give or take. That's 15. That's what, 17.5 you make in a year. By the time you pay the 7, you made 10 grand. Then you turn around, you got maintenance. Let's say you spend another 4 grand in maintenance. You had 6 grand. Well, shit, you could have worked at McDonald's and made $6,000. You know, so that's how I look at it. And I feel like instead of leaving my kids a ton of property, I feel like the money is better, because if I leave you a lot of headaches and you can't afford to take care of it, guess what? You lose it all. So I would rather leave you the funds and you decide what you want to do with it. You lose it, that's on you. I'm dead and gone. You know, but
Well, I'm glad you mentioned your kids. So as far as what you learned from your dad, you got that first flip, which was gifted to you, and then the next property you ended up purchasing from. Okay, you ended up purchasing on your own. You think you started building a system, or this was all relationships and referrals as far as you generating leads back then?
Well, my very first deal, honestly, it was like it was something that just happened. Like, it wasn't nothing that I had planned on. You know, it wasn't like I was trying to get into real estate. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. Yeah. Like, of course, I went to school. I went to Xavier to try to become a pharmacist. And hey, look, right. You know, so it's like the first one happened. It was like, damn, I just made $100,000. It's like, let me go buy this, let me go buy that. Like, it wasn't, oh, let me reinvest it into another property. It wasn't that. Once I had the car accident, is what made me believe, like, damn, bro, like, you just blew through $100 grand buying foolish, you know? Right. So that next one, it was like, man, now it's like I have to, it's time to get serious now, you know? So I had my daughter had to be maybe 4 at the time. And that second one was really the one that opened my eyes and let me know that, look, this is what you're gonna be doing, you know? Right. So I ended up.
You talking about the second flip or the second daughter?
The second property.
Okay.
So the second property let me know that, look, this is something that I'm gonna be doing for the long term. Once I saw the return, it was like, look, this is something you're gonna be doing. I mean, I've been around it my whole life. I just never knew about it. So then I started researching, doing my own stuff, figuring stuff out my own way, and it worked. You know?
So you've been around the construction side your whole life, because that's what your dad did.
So my dad had a construction company before I was born.
So when did you start your own?
So I started my own construction company in 2014.
Okay.
So it going on 11 years. And well, basically, it was like I went took the test. Well, so what happened was I had once my dad started declining, it was like my brother was telling me about. So they had core engineer contracts, they had FEMA contracts, they had all kind of contracts. So it was like my brother basically was trying to prepare me to take over what he knew my dad was about to move on from, you know, because he'd been around him for so long. So I went and took the test, failed it the first time, second time passed it. And it was basically just like a waiting game. Like I didn't know that I was going to have a construction company. My idea was with that license was to be able to fulfill the contracts that they were getting from the state, the state organizations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So FEMA, Army Corps, a few like programs that the state had that was available for homeowners. They were like tapping into stuff like that. So that was what I thought I would be doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up getting getting the crew together, and I started just doing my own thing, flipping my own properties.
So how old you at that time? When you took the test,
so when I
passed
took the
it?
test, that was 2014. I had to be 22 at the time.
Wow.
22, 23.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was 22, 23 at the time when I got my GC license.
That's awesome. So what's some of the advantages that you recognize that you get to take advantage of with having a construction company built in on the inside of your real estate business that maybe people that don't have that advantage have?
So when I first started, it was like I didn't know what I was doing. I just had guys that I had been recruited. Like, hey, I know he's a good carpenter. He's this. I had a few guys that my dad used that were plumbers, electricians. So what I did was I ended up, once I got my license, say, let's fast forward 5 years. So this is 2018, 2019.
Mm-hmm.
I decided to let my wife go and take the test to become a GC in the state of Louisiana. So she took the test. She passed the test first try. And it was like, damn, like I took me 2 tries to pass it. She knew nothing about it. She passed on the first try. But it's basically, it's common sense. It's basically laws and, basically taxes, pay your taxes, basically,
Mm-hmm.
So she ended up passing it. And now what we do is I pretty much, any hard money loans that I get for a flip, she's my GC, and any hard money loans she get for a flip, I'm her GC.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would do is how I tap into the market now, like I look at it totally different from back then. It's like what I do now is, let's say I just listed a property. I don't know if you saw it on Brutus. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I just listed that one. I just finished it about a week ago. What I did was, it was a friend of mine who the property was for. It was for his family. His grandmother owned it. His mom and his uncle was the successors to it.
Mm-hmm.
And she basically told him they didn't want nothing to do with it. She couldn't afford to pay for this, pay for that. So I partnered with him.
Mm-hmm.
And his mom was like, well, she was giving it to him. Hey, I'm giving it to you. Like me and your uncle's gonna sign off for it and you can have it. So what I told him was, I'm like, nah, we don't want to give it to us. If she's giving it to you, it's free already.
Mm-hmm.
So you take it, you sign into your name, and I'll buy it from you for 180 grand.
Mm-hmm.
Now keep in mind, me and you are partners. So out the gate, you got 90,000, I got 90,000.
Mm-hmm.
So we did that, and my wife was the GC on it. We renovated it, and of course, me being a contractor, my numbers are my numbers.
Mm-hmm.
The lender don't know my numbers, so we're able to put something on it just in case pitfall for that project. We got money to pay the note. We can do this. Got
Mm-hmm.
the insurance. But me and my wife, a lot of stuff that we do together is strictly I'll get a property. She'll be my GC. And once I finish the property, I roll it into a 1031 exchange. So you get 45 days from the date that you sell that property to acquire a new property.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'll do is I already have one in the pipeline. And when I have it in the pipeline, I just take the proceeds from that flip and put it all back into that one. And of course, she's my GC. So if it costs me 50 grand on paper, it costs me 100 grand.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm able to pull 50,000 from the profit that we wasn't taxed on, because now I'm basically maneuvering my numbers through the other LLC.
Yeah. What's the reason you don't keep yourself as the GC? If you have a hard money loan, why not keep yourself as a GC and the borrower? What's the advantage of separating?
So the lender that I work with, it was a guy that my older brother, my older brother and him are real close friends. Mm-hmm. And what he do is the I guess he's like a broker, so to say, mm-hmm. and he kind of connect me with different lenders. So what they look for is they don't want me to actually be the loan holder and be the GC. I mean, it's kind of like conflict of interest.
Yeah.
So that's what made me get her to get the license in order to work it that way. Mm. Whereas she's the member on this LLC, I'm the member on this one. And we've been doing that successfully for the last, 8 years? Mm-hmm. Well, since 2017, 2018.
So talk to us about tax benefits of separating. So come December, since you were separately the GC and separately the borrower, what's some advantage on the tax side? There's some cost segregations or some write-offs because you were the GC?
Well, so I mean, it's more. So the guy I use for my taxes, like he's been around for a while, mm-hmm. And I basically give him access to my QuickBooks the entire year. I pay him, monthly for his services, and he take care of all of it. So I have,
Yeah.
so I had a 1031 exchange that I was like right on the deadline of missing that 45-day period to acquire another property. And it's crazy because I have a cousin that's an attorney. He's not real estate attorney, but he's dib and dab in the business, and he pretty much filled me in on all the loopholes and stuff for the 1031. So I was like at maybe day 42, day 43, and he had a property. My tax guy had a property, and he said, "Bro, you have literally 3 days before you paying capital gains on this money." And we ended up rolling. I ended up purchasing a property from him. That was one of his properties.
Wow.
Purchased his property from him, and 4.5 months later, we ended up selling it, of course. And it was a house that he was going to list for sale, but I ended up buying it before he listed it for sale. And I was able to meet my deadline on the 1031, and he made his money on the back end.
Wow. Now, what's one thing you learned from that 1031 experience that most people probably overlook?
Oh, well, if you don't go 1031, you're paying 37% on whatever you sell. So if you make $100,000, hey, it's like this, right? So this is how I look at things. If you have a 9 to 5, let's say you have a 9 to 5, right? And of course, you every 2 weeks you get paid. So if you get paid every 2 weeks, you're paying taxes when you get paid, right? When you come out once you get taxed, let's say you got a $100 bill. Once you get taxed on that, if you pay capital gains, you at $63 on that $100 bill that you had, right? Then when you go to the store, you pay another 10% to purchase whatever you're purchasing. So now that $63 became $56, $57. So it's like, why would I not buy another investment if this is the realm of work that I'm in? Why not buy another one, put it all in, just finagle my numbers on the contractor side?
Yeah.
It makes a ton of sense.
It does.
But a lot of people are not in a position to do that, because they don't have that ability on the contractor side to do it.
So how do you manage your crews right now? So let's say like your Brutus project. So you are the investor and the GC.
And the realtor.
And the realtor. So what does that look like from start to finish? So Brutus was a referral. So as far as that entire experience from renovation all the way to list, what is that experience and what does that team look like for you with having everything in-house?
So I have two guys that I basically, I know I shouldn't say it, but I basically trust them with my life. That's on my crew. And one of the guys, he's been around since 2008. I'm talking working for the family. And this guy basically has an American Express card, goes to Home Depot at his will. I see it on my transaction side of what he purchased, when he purchased, and I basically let him manage the entire project. So I have more than one business, more than maybe 5 businesses that I try and operate alone, So I have my construction business. I'm a realtor. I have my the other GC, that I have with my wife, plus her LLC for her investment company. And I just I'm in the process now of building a building in Chalmette where I'm opening a gun store. So I have my FFL. So I should have that open maybe June of this year.
Okay.
So that's always been a passion of mine. Guns has always been a passion. So I finally got my FFL, and I should have that open in June right on Paris Road across from the sheriff's office.
Cool. So we had Chris Rude last month, and he's talked a lot about diversifying, not putting all your eggs in one basket, especially in real estate. It's not about being the best at one thing. It's being a part of teams and several things. Right. So what's your philosophy or your take on diversifications? Because it sounds like you're not just in construction, you're not just in real estate industry, period. You even in guns and FEMA contracts, things like that. What's the reason why? Why not go deep into one thing? Why diversify it?
Well, because the reason why I decided to kind of decide to do the gun thing was because it was like 2023, I would say. I noticed like the flipping side of the business had kind of slowed.
23?
So, yeah, so like 22, 23, like, you know, once the interest rates start climbing, that side of my business started slowing to where it was like, it wasn't, I would have houses on the market for 160, 180 days before they would move. And I would find myself lowering the price. I mean, you know, dropping the price 20, 30,000, you know, before it would sell. And it just got to the point to where it was like, I hated the rentals then. I loved the flips, and then once the flips wasn't working, I was loving the rentals and was hating the flips, you know? So it was kind of like a give or take. It was like either hold on to this now or sell it, and then I'll be in a position I was in with the flips to where it was like, so my contractor work hadn't slowed. I wasn't able to move houses on the market as, you know, as fast as I was, say, COVID or before COVID, you know? So it got to the point to where basically I was living off what my rentals were producing, you know? And that became like, it was a disaster. It was like, like it wasn't bringing what I was used to bringing in. And it's like, damn, like, what can I do to kind of like subsidize that income? And I ended up my wife started this, sort of like a Etsy store, so to say. And I bought these lasers, so CNC machine lasers, and we was cutting stuff. So I have a friend of mine that owns a company called NOLA LED, and we started cutting signs. I was doing laser engravings. I was doing all type of stuff. So it was like, you know, in order to supplement that income once stuff slowed down. So I decided to do the guns. I ended up getting a license, and Cerakoting and laser engraving became like this big thing. Like everybody loved it. Like I was doing full scripts on firearms. That was selling. So it was like, man, look, we need to make this a business because at the end of the day, I mean, technically I wasn't supposed to do it. Without the FFL, I wasn't supposed to be engraving on the guns, and that I didn't know. So I got the FFL and I started doing that, and that became real, you know, it was real lucrative. So I ended up moving on to doing that, and then things started picking back up, and I jumped back into the flips.
Yeah.
So I have one on Brooders. I have another on Law that I'm finishing. And I want to say these may be my first two since maybe the beginning of 2024.
Yeah. And you self-managing your rentals?
Well, yeah, I do all my own property management.
Okay. So what is that experience like with you having
a headache?
What type of headache?
I had an instance one time, like I'm more lenient. Like I'm not the type of guy like, hey, you have a housing choice voucher. I'm not the type of guy I'm coming pound down your door and making sure you're following the rules. That's not my thing. So I had a tenant one time. It's a funny story. She called me. She's like, hey, the guy she was dating, it was her kid's dad. You know, the guy wasn't supposed to be living in the house. So she's like, he's coming home from jail and he needs somewhere to stay. So I'm like, damn, like put me between, you know, right? You know, I'm looking at it as if, what if it was me in that position?
Yeah.
I have kids. My kid, you know, if it was let's say my wife, but in her case, it was her guy. He was like, you know, he needs somewhere to stay, so he needs to come here. And I'm like, man, like, you know, that's against the rules. But in my mind, I'm like, hey, look, I mean, I know how the separation goes in families. You know, like I've seen it like growing up where a man not in the household or a man raising the kids. You know, I mean, it could go both ways. So I've seen it. So I allowed it. Of course, while he was in prison, he probably had a plethora of women that he was dealing with.
Yeah.
So she, maybe about 2-3 weeks in, she goes through his phone and she see where he was talking to somebody else. She puts him out. He goes back to the house while she at work and sticks a hose pipe in my window. Hose pipe was running for maybe 10 hours while she was at work. So the neighbor called and was like, hey, John, you got a hose pipe in your window. I'm like, a hose pipe in my window? So I called and I asked, I say, why they have a hose pipe in the window? She's like, I'm at work. I've been at work since 7 o'clock this morning. So I shoots to the house. I make it there. I open the door. Water just come running out.
As soon as you open the door.
So the water maybe had got up to maybe past the baseboards in like a few of the rooms. And my first thing was, damn, like I allowed it, so I fault myself, right? She instantly said it was him who did it. So, I mean, I fault myself. It was my fault. It was a mistake that I made for allowing it, but I allowed it because of the dynamic, right? So she comes home. First thing she sees is her bedroom set. She had like this cheap bedroom set that when water hit it, it swells. So her first thing to me was, who gonna pay for my bedroom set? I'm like, pay for your bedroom set. Who's gonna pay for my house to get renovated? And she's like, I said, well, look, so this is what we have to do. I mean, you have to give me his name so I can go file it. I mean, I need to put out some kind of warrant for him to get arrested again. She said, so she give me his information. When she give me his information, I tell her, I says, well, you know, in the meantime, you have the 2 bedrooms that was toward the back of the house. They were untouched. So I'm like, well, I'm going to have to get some guys in here, gut the sheetrock maybe 2 or 3 feet up, and, you know, replace it. So this was coming out of my pocket because I didn't go through the insurance company. I was going to do it out of my pocket because, like I say, I fought it myself for it. Mm-hmm. I got a letter in the mail that I was being sued for her furniture.
By her?
By her. So she went to civil court and tried to sue me for the damages to her property. So I laughed it off. Like, when I saw it, I laughed it off, and I tell my wife, I'm like, man, like, how I'm getting sued, and her kid dad is the one who did it. So we goes to court. They dismissed it. The first court date, they talked it over. They seen what a guy was arrested for it, and it was a guy that she was dealing with, and she even said out her own mouth, it was my daughter's dad who put the hose pipe in the window. So they dismissed it, and then she still so I evicted her. Like, I filed I got eviction stuff set up, got her evicted, and about a week later I received this long text message. I'm talking from the back of this room maybe to the front of this room, and it's like, bro, she was basically saying, bro, you still owe me a bedroom set. So I blocked the number and let it go out the window. And maybe about 3 months later, she was looking for another property to rent. And I was renovating the house on General Ogden for a person who I had partnered with on another deal before. So I'm renovating the house, and she calls me, and she says, so I pulled up, I had inspections that morning, and she calls me, she said, hey, John, you think you can hang out at the house for about maybe another 45 minutes? I have a tenant coming to look at the property. So I say, yeah, no problem. I wait. I see a car pull up. She gets out, and I'm like, whoa. It's like, so I called. I'm like, man, this is your property, but I wouldn't rent it to her because this was the lady I told you I had the incident with. So she goes ahead, and she rents the house to the lady. I guess she was in dire straits. She needed to rent the house. She rented the property to the lady. I mean, well, nothing happened like that happened at my property. Nothing happened like that. So the lady she moved in, and she was there maybe 6-7 months. She started complaining she needed this fixed, that fixed. All right, of course, tenant, you need to fix it. So I went in, I fixed it. She ended up falling. It was a 2-story house. She ended up falling down the staircase, right? And she calls the lady and tells the lady, you have a ghost in your house.
Oh, wow.
That pushed her down the stairs. So the lady called me. She's laughing. She's like, bro, I should have never dealt with this, basically. So I'm like, I told you. She didn't have a ghost in my case, but she had a flooded house, So she was like, so she talked to her, and so I ended up, she called me. The girl called me. When she called me, I was on another phone, and I was talking to, at the time, the lady who the house was for a partner. And me and him conversating, but she called me, and I accidentally answered the phone. So I'm talking about her to him while she's listening to my conversation. And I was like, man, this, I have a voicemail still in my phone where she's talking to somebody else, calling me back to, I guess, get on me for what I was telling him about her. And she left a voicemail where she was talking to somebody. She was saying, but he called me up. I'm like, oh, my God. I didn't know what to say. She had me, literally had me. While I was talking to him, she literally was in front of one of her coworkers while I was talking about her to him. I couldn't even call her back. I was like, you know what? This is a dead issue. That's your tenant. You have to deal with it. I don't want no communication. I'm not going to work on the house no more. And it was hilarious because it was it just goes to show you that I told you this, and you gave a second chance. Same thing with me, though. So I couldn't fault you because I allowed it. Right. So you allowed it, and it just so happened it happened to you. And it was man, it was a nightmare. I'm like, bro, I hope I never run into her.
So with that being said, so what's your philosophy on rentals now? So if you buy, is there a certain number of units to where you will offload it to management, or are you looking to liquidate your rental property? What's your philosophy on rentals right now? So
the 18 that I have, 16 are housing choice.
And these are units or properties?
These are single families.
Okay.
So they're housing choice vouchers, right? So typically my money's there every month. So it's basically hands off. Unless I get a call from a tenant, hey, I need this, or this, right? So it's basically hands off. I only have 2 cash paying tenants. One been in the property maybe 8 years, the other one maybe 5. So, and it's like those 2 that's paying cash, never call. The ones that's on a voucher call me every 2 months. Like, hey, I need this, I need that. And I'm like, so I've just been trying to get rid of as many as I could. I had 24, I sold 6. And it's just the insurance and the taxes. Like, geez. Like,
and all in Orleans Parish? Or?
Well, Orleans, Orleans, 2 in Metairie, and 1 in Chalmette.
And David came up and started talking about the healthy home. So with you having rentals in Orleans Parish, have you already had an experience with the healthy home inspections?
Well, it's basically an inspection where they come out, they walk around the property, and as long as it's not where you got doors hanging off, outlet cover, outlets out, they pretty much passing the inspections. They writing them off and passing them. I mean, of course, if you have something that's inhabitable, it's inhabitable. So they just basically passing them off. But I never tapped at one point I tried to tap the Airbnb market, and it was too many rules, too much hoopla behind it, so I kind of stayed away from it. But what we did do was me and another guy, we ended up getting 3 commercial buildings. 2 of them that we currently have that we made bed and breakfast, that we were able to basically skip over that short-term rental with that, because we did the bed and breakfast and it considered it as like a hotel, so it considered long-term. And well, not long-term, but it was like in that long-term rental space, right? Yeah. So it was like basically a loophole that he found that we were able to slide by and get through with. And so we like, man, this is what we're going to keep doing. We're going to just buy another one, We bought another one on Russia Blade and I think it's Gravia, but it's right behind like the Falstaff Apartments. Okay. And the city was basically like, ain't going to happen this time, my boy. Right. So they shut it down. So it's like we holding a building now. I was just telling Steve, I'm thinking about making it like an office space. I mean, it's right across from the courthouse. They're redoing the courthouse. So thinking about maybe making it an office space, maybe sectioning it off and doing that there. But they basically rained on our parade with that.
But so you talked about being a contractor. Your numbers are your numbers. That's the advantage of being a contractor with the license and what you're able to do between your wife and the LLC. For the realtors that's in the room, with you having your realtor license, what's the advantage that you seeing with all the other licenses that you have? So as a realtor, what's the leg up
So I make you laugh about that. So I got my realtor's license not because I wanted to be a realtor. I got my realtor license. I ended up buying a property on Cadiz and Coliseum, a couple blocks off of Britannia, Britannia, St. Charles, Magazine, Valence, in that area. I got it for $460. I put $160,000 in. It was 3,600 square feet. It was a duplex. The bottom used to be a pharmacy, so it was commercial space on the bottom, residential on the top. I bought it, converted to a single family. Ran into some issues with the city with that because the commercial area, I ended up putting the kitchen and the living room downstairs in the main area. So I had to go before the board of building, BBSA board. So when I went before them, it's like I knew one of the guys on. He was my church member. He's an engineer. So I'm like, all right, got somebody that I know, Yeah. So I spoke to him about it before the actual meeting. And what they did was they waited till I finished the house, passed all the inspections. Was about to get the certificate of occupancy, ready to go. They came in and they said, well, hey, look, this was commercial. You need to raise those outlets. And I'm like, man, my sheetrock is up. Like, I'm not raising no outlets. So they were like, well, the only way you could appeal this is if you go before this board. So I went before the board. Of course, the guy who I knew ended up helping me in some shape or form. They vote. It's like so many people in like a group of them that vote. And he was the first to vote, and he said that it was fine, and I guess everybody else just followed along. Or he may have talked to him, I don't know. But I ended up getting my real estate license because of that property. I was in it about $620. I listed it for $1.2 million. We sold it at $1.2. I paid over $70,000 in realtor fees. I was like, this ain't gonna happen much longer. I took the 90-hour course, got my real estate license, and I'm like, time to be my own agent, you know? So that was 2020. That was in 2020, and I took the course. I ended up taking a course. I didn't know about Donaldson, didn't know about Pro Educate, didn't know about none of that. So I ended up enrolling at Delgado and taking the law course and other course. So I was a whole semester taking a 90-hour course. So I ended up finishing it, and after I finished it, I went took my test. I sat for my test, did everything I needed to do, sat for my test, passed the test, and when I signed on with Keller Williams, the lady was like, so how did you get your license? I'm like, well, I went to Delgado for a semester. And she just laughed in my face like, what? Like, you went to a college to become a realtor? And I'm like, that was the only way I knew. Like, I didn't know no other way. I didn't ask no questions. It was like, I knew I could get it this way. This is the way I'm going to do it. So I became a realtor, and all my deals now, I list them and sell them myself.
Your wife is licensed too?
No, my wife's not she's not a licensed agent. No.
Okay. So again, what advantages do you have that other contractors don't have by you being a realtor? What access, or how do you leverage that access to other realtors in the
I seen
office?
somebody post in a group the other day that they was quoted $290 for labor and roofing. Some guy posted that, and I'm like, well, insurance companies pay about $400, give or take, for roof, roof job, right?
400 a square?
Yeah, about 400 a square. So what I typically I see prices at about, for me myself, 200. I pay about $40 a bundle, so every 3 bundles is a square, so give or take $120 plus my labor. I pay day rate, so it's like, if I got 5 guys at $150 a day, $200 a day, I'm paying $1,000 in labor a day, and the roof is done in a day. Versus another contract, if I tell you, hey, look, I can do your roof for you. If I charge you $400 a square, I'm making $200 a square. So it's like basically they passing what the insurance company is paying them on to the consumer. Me, myself, personally, I don't really do renovations for other people, but if it's something like that, and if I know you, then I'll go ahead on and do it. And I mean, I could do it at maybe $250, $255 a square, and it's like $150 difference from what you're paying if you go to another contractor. So I save a lot. Being that I'm my own GC, I save a ton. And that's why I feel like the flipping side, or even rentals. I mean, I just don't like the rentals, but I save a lot of money to where I see more on the back end. And the guys that I have that I say that's basically my 2 main guys that run my crews, what I do with them is I have them on a set, like a set daily rate, but it's more than other guys. And when I sell a property, what I do is I basically, if I sell, let's say I make 80, 90 grand, I might say, here's $2 grand for you, $2 grand for you, and for helping me out. But you still made, your money that you made. And they love it. Like, they have no problem with, going above and beyond for what I need them to do, because they know that incentive is there on the back end.
Yep. And for the people that haven't, we had another guest, Nelson Salem. He does the exact same thing with his crew, even though that's his guys on a daily basis. When a flip sells,
right,
he tips them. Right. And that keeps people around even longer, especially when storms come, when everybody
like one of my guys, I can literally
chasing.
pick up the phone at 10 o'clock at night. Hey, bro, I got this. I need you to go and check this out. You going to do it.
And what you seeing different in the market now? So you've been in the game since 2000. Basically since 2009, as far as your
2010.
So what's the difference now that you seeing as an investor from 2009 now in 2025?
Higher prices.
Higher prices on what?
Everything. I mean, back then, like I tell you, a lot of the city stuff that I was getting, like a lot of city properties back then, I mean, or even wholesale deals. Like, I would come across wholesale deals back then, and it was crazy. It was like 25, 30 grand for a property. So I bought a property. Actually, Steve tried to buy my property not too long ago. So it was a property that I had. I bought it. I put it in my mom's name, and we hadn't started renovations yet. Steve calls my mom. Hey, you interested in selling the property? My mom said, well, you have to talk to my son. So that's how I met Steve. I think that was about, maybe 6 years ago. So that's how I met Steve. He called me. He like, hey, your mom gave me your number. Are you interested in selling your property? I'm like, who are you? Right. He was like, my name's Steve, and I'm looking to buy the property. I'm willing to pay cash. I'm like, nah, bro. Like, I'm keeping that. So that's how I met him, and I've been knowing him ever since. Yep.
So property prices have been higher. And what about on the contractor side as far as the city with regulations. So
permitting is crazy.
right. So right after Katrina, they were trying to push things through. So now, how does it feel as a contractor?
I mean, after Katrina, I guess it was a lot easier. I mean, I didn't deal with it, so to say, after Katrina. You know, my dad was, but it's like after that Hard Rock incident, it's like, man, like you would have to basically go to City Hall and drag them to your project to get an inspection. So when they started the third party inspections, it was like, thank God, like I could pick up the phone, call somebody, do it, and send it in. But the inspectors, they tend to, I mean, the city of New Orleans is basically man, I don't even know what to call it, but it's like, it's horrible. I filed a permit for the Law Street property, that one I'm telling you that I'm finishing now, that I'm getting rid of the list.
Yeah.
I filed this permit, let's just say maybe October of 24, right? Filed the permit. It was already gutted, foundation issues. So we bought it in September. I started filing my permits for it in October. Put my application in. It was maybe December. Hadn't heard nothing back from the city. So I go down to City Hall, and at the time, it was this guy named Obi. I think his name was Obi. He was one of like the guys over there inspections or something, right? So I had an incident with him a few years ago on another property. So I'm like, yeah, I need to see you again, basically, because I feel like now it's like you sabotaging me based on when I'm filing my permits. It's like every time I file a permit, his name pops up on my paperwork. Why? You know, so it's kind of like, so I go down there, I go to see him, right? So when I go to see him, he's not there. So this lady named Tammy Warren, go to her office, get to her office. She's over everybody. So she's like this person like, oh, I don't need to speak to you. You speak to this one. And I'm like, nah, like I put a permit in October, it's December. I don't have no permits. She's like, well, we're going to get on it. And that was it. I go to the project. I say, man, listen, we about to start working in this property. I'll just take the fine. We about to start working in it because at this point, I'm holding it for 2 months. So I start working on the property, right? And my guy's in there working, and a friend of mine called me, and he was like, man, I'm around your property, like, pull up over here. I'm around here. I want, holler at you. So I pull up over there. We talking. He walked in. He saw it. And he says, man, let's go get lunch. Now, keep in mind, we was in the house for about 30, 45 minutes.
He's an inspector or just
No,
a
so it's a friend of mine.
Okay.
So he's like, man, let's go grab lunch. So I'm like, all right, cool. So we leaving out the property to go get lunch. I see Obi on the passenger side of a black Acura taking a picture of my property while we working on it, basically to fine me for working without a permit. So the lunch date got canceled. It's like I'm going to City Hall. So I made it there before him. And I go to the office, and I just like went off the deep end. I'm like, man, listen, this dude was just in a black Acura truck taking a picture of my property. He not pushing none of my permits through, but he got time to be on a lunch break, not even in the city vehicle, passing my project, taking a picture.
To do a stop order, but not to do an inspection.
So, of course, 2 weeks later, Obi was fired. And I haven't had a problem since with the city of New Orleans. So I haven't had a problem since, So it was just like, man, like that was like, I don't know if it was God that made me come out of the house and see him. But as I'm walking down the porch, he's passing. Like he's coming up the street, and he got his camera out the window taking a picture.
Wow.
We had a temp pole up. One is supposed to have a temp pole up. We had a temp pole up. I'm talking about generators running because we hadn't got power yet.
Right.
And I'm like, damn, he got me dead to right. But then I was like, man, he on the passenger side of a car. First of all, he probably was on a lunch break, so I made it to City Hall before he got back there. And I was like, man, I said, Obi just passed one of my projects, and he took a picture of it.
Right.
And Tammy said, he took a picture. I said, yeah, he was in a black Acura MDX. And she was like, I said, it wasn't a city vehicle. I don't know who he was with. It was another guy on the driver's side. So I don't know who it was, who he was with, because they fined me on my Cadis project. So my Cadis project that I ended up doing, they fined me on that for working without a permit.
Right.
Same thing. I had issues 2.5 months before the permits came through, so they fined me on that. So I'm guessing he feel like, hey, I'm going to catch you again. And, of course, he caught me again, but it was just the wrong way he caught me.
Right.
So he got fired 2 weeks later.
Wow.
That was a blessing.
Well, man.
That was a blessing.
Only thing that could have made that story worse is if Obi would have had a hose pipe. That's the only thing. If he would have had a hose pipe, that would have made it even worse.
If Obi would have had a hose pipe, Obi would have been in trouble.
We're about to take questions from the crowd, man. So lessons learned. So you've been in the business over 14 years at this point. You did one of your first flips all on your own when you could have asked, your dad for help. You've been through 24 rentals in Orleans Parish. You've been through hurricanes. You've been through snowstorms as a contractor, as an investor, as a landlord.
Tornadoes and shell mat.
What's the lessons learned?
I mean, all I can say is, I mean, it's a business where you can't give up. You got to constantly go. I mean, it's like you're going to run into a lot of hurdles. And I mean, when I say a lot, I mean a lot. It's like it always hasn't been peaches. Like it's basically, I mean, I'll run into one thing, try and solve it, can't solve it, move on to something else and catch it on the back end. But I mean, it's like as long as you don't give up, keep pushing through, you're going to eventually get to that finish line.
Yeah. So do you recommend the realtor that's not a contractor, do you recommend or suggest that a realtor should get a contractor's license or vice versa? Should contractors have realtors on their team or get a realtor's license?
I would say it's good for a realtor to maybe have a contractor on their team that they trust, not necessarily get your own license. I mean, it just so happened the way the flow of events went for me, it worked out to where I already had the GC license. I was already flipping. I was already doing these things to where I needed to become a realtor to save some money on the back end, you know? So that's how I ended up getting my realtor's license. But I wouldn't say, if you're already a realtor, I wouldn't say go and get your GC license. I mean, because, I mean, you know the realtor side of it. You don't know the GC side of it. And that can be crazy. I mean, because, I mean, if you don't know the work, you have to get subs. And, I mean, a lot of these guys in the business are not honest at all. They're not honest at all. I mean, I had a guy that I did that I ended up getting for he had a big contract with the city of New Orleans. Like he had a big contract, and he was doing like a lot of the back in the day before like I really got into the business, he was already a contractor, right? So he did like a lot of the Harmony Oaks, like a lot of the old projects. He did the new development on, you know, rebuilding them, the swimming pools and stuff like that. So he had been in the game a long, long time. So I had came across a project with a school that I had got a contract for, and I subbed the contract to him. And what he did me was, I ended up pulling all my permits. He had all his licenses and, you know, stuff like that I had on file. What he did was he subbed it to another guy. So when he subbed it to the other guy, I'm paying him. I'm cutting checks to him, but he's not cutting checks to that guy. So that guy's looking like, hey, like, I need to get paid. So what he did was they ended up, you know, calling me, contacting me, and it was about maybe $26,000 or $27,000 that he hadn't paid that guy. So I reached out to him, and I'm like, hey, look, why the guy's name, his name Pedro. Like, why is Pedro not getting paid? And he was like, well, he's not submitting his tickets to me on time. I said, well, if he's not submitting his tickets to you on time, how are you able to submit your tickets to me to get paid? I said, so if he's not submitting it to you, I shouldn't be paying you. So I ended up, fixing the problem, got it taken care of, and it was just a lesson learned. Like, hey, I'm trusting this guy because his track record go way back. I'm talking millions of dollars of projects, and it's like, what it is like, I guess they feel like they have more experience to where they can kind of pull a fast one on you. And I mean, with me being, like I said, I'm hands-on, but like I'm really not hands-on. So what I'll do is, I feel like if I sub something to somebody with the previous experience, I shouldn't have to hold your hand to do the job. If that's the case, I could get my guys to do the job. And I learned a lot of lessons in that aspect, dealing with like shady people. Like I had contracts, for Hurricane Laura, I had a FEMA contract out in Lake Charles. And I was getting guys so my FEMA crews, they consist of basically what they call a 10-man pack. So I'll send 10 guys per pack to affected area. And you could send upwards of 50, 60 guys. So I had 30 guys in Lake Charles. They were housing them in Beaumont. FEMA was paying for the housing in Beaumont. And the guys would go to Beaumont, they sleep there, and they come back into Lake Charles the next morning to work. And I had one guy in place. Technically, I was supposed to be there. Of course, I couldn't drive 4 hours every day from home with my kids and stuff, so I put one guy in charge. Basically, he was doing my end-of-the-week reports. I'm paying him more than I'm paying other guys, and I was having 3 and 4 guys at a time. Like, they would work Monday through Friday. So basically, it's like they'll go in, and they'll gut. So they give you like a pack, right? So you might have, for every 5 guys, I try and average 10 properties a week, right? So you'll get a cluster of homes, and 5 guys will gut 10 properties a week. And I would tell them, hey, look, when we first started, I didn't know no better, so I'm got 5 guys. Hey, look, these are y'all 10 houses this week. Have at it. Then it got to the point to where it's like, the longer you stay on the project, if another disaster happened, guess what? Your contract is still locked here because you ain't finished. So what I would do is I go in, I tell them, hey, look, put 3 guys on one house, 2 on another. you're doing 2 a day. So Monday through Friday, you complete 10 properties. So you still have Saturday and Sunday where you're getting paid where you would normally work, you're not working. So what the guys would do is on a Friday, they would finish, they would drive back to New Orleans to stay with, I guess, their family. I didn't know that because I wasn't there. So that Sunday night, they'll drive back. Well, one night, 4 of the guys took one of the rental vans that FEMA was paying for, drove 8 guys back to New Orleans and had a car accident. So Monday morning, I get a call. Hey, some of the guys ain't come show up for work, and the van's not here to pick up the other guys to take them to Lake Charles. So I'm like, that's weird. So I call the guy who I had in charge. And, of course, he was one of the guys in the van that came back to New Orleans with them. So now it's like it's either me or my brother that goes to – we take turns. So last year was his turn. This year is my turn. So I'm praying for not an active hurricane season, but I'm praying for active hurricane season because I want the money. So it's my turn. So last year it was in Sarasota, and he's basically been backwards and forward there, which is not bad because it's not a far drive, you know. So he's back and forward every other weekend. But this year I'm just hoping and praying that we don't have as much because I'm not trying to go nowhere for 6-7 months.
Yeah, I understand. We'll take questions right now. Question from the audience. I got one more. As far as disasters, when disasters hit here, are you still allowed to work on your own properties?
Well, I mean, yeah, I can work on my own properties, but I can't work on them through any of those programs, right?
So tell me what you mean.
So basically, I mean, if, let's say a storm or something hit here, right? I mean, my insurance will cover my property, and I would go in under my insurance and do my own work.
Okay.
So, like, I can't, put it this way, I can't apply for a grant or, you know, anything, and I can't be the actual contractor. Like, I can apply for a grant, but I wouldn't get the contract to basically go out and assess my own properties to get paid for them, you know? So I can't say, hey, look, this house got $50,000, let me write this to FEMA. Nah, I can't do it.
Okay, gotcha. And Steve, you could come up for needs and wants. So right now, for the wholesalers that's in your room, what's your buy box?
So I mean, this how I look at deals, right? So anything within 5 years, if I can make my money back on a deal, I feel like it's a good deal. I mean, I don't have this 5 times, 20 times, 10 times. I don't have that strategy, right? So I'm not. The numbers really don't matter. The final number is what matter to me. If I buy a property for $100,000, I need to put $100,000 in it. It's $200,000, right? So in 5 years, if I can make that $200,000 back, it's a buy. So I'm pretty much open to anything. I was just telling Steve, I got a deal now that I've been working for the past maybe 4 months with a guy in Ohio. We're trying to acquire the old Laurenberger basket building. I don't know if y'all familiar with that. So it was a guy back in, I think it was like the 60s. He had like this basket company. He used to weave baskets. And he was building baskets, so he decided to buy like 120 acres of land, and he built a actual property that looked like a basket. I have pictures of it in my phone if anybody wants to see it. But so he built this building. It has like over 100 offices in it. And a guy came to me with a proposal. One of my cousins that live in L.A., he does like a lot of acquisitions on larger commercial property. And the guy came to me. He needed somebody to fund the deal. So my cousin called me. It was like, hey, you think your lender could fund this deal? And I'm like, well, how much is it? He's like $6 million. And I'm like, well, I don't know this guy. You know this guy, so I need to get on the conversation and talk to this guy. So me and my friend of mine, he's right there in the audience, we was out at Drago's eating, and he called me, and it's like the entire time we sat in that restaurant, I was on the phone with him. It's like, was unable to get off the phone. Like, he had this nice pitch. The pitch was great. I ended up getting it to a guy that's my broker ended up getting it to a guy that's a hedge guy, and they was able to fund the deal with only a $6,000 due diligence fee. $6.6 million. So we're in the process of getting that. I actually signed on as an investor with that deal, and what I'll do is, at first we thought he would need a down payment, so I was going to fund the down payment, but we ended up not needing it, and he ended up giving me 20% equity in the property.
Wow. So what's the exit on that?
So what he's trying to do, so he got some he got some plans to make, like, over the next 10 or 15 years. He's trying to do theme park in that area. He sent me. I have the plans and stuff for it, but right now what they're doing is they setting up. They have like 7 other shops with like a maybe 60,000 square foot building on the property, and they're gonna subdivide it to let like vendors, like so far he has something with Reese's, the Laurenberger building. The guy had ended up getting Reese's to sponsor something where they doing. We were supposed to close before, so they was gonna do like this Easter thing with Easter rabbits on top of the basket. The basket actually was on the late night show not too long ago. So they got plans to actually do like a light up thing for Christmas, stuff like that, to kind of acquire that first set of money back. And then over the course of that time, he planned on expanding and doing sort of like a small Dollywood in Columbus.
Okay. That'll work. And how could people get in touch with you? Wholesalers, realtors, other contractors to partner up. How can we get in touch with you?
Facebook, Instagram, phone, email.
And what's your Instagram?
So my Instagram is J_the DA instead of THE _developer, and my Facebook is John Schnyder, my first and last name. My email is SchneiderInvestments@iCloud.com. So I pretty much, however you can get in contact with me is. Steve sent me enough deals through through email. So, and I have a nephew that I actually taught how to wholesale. So he do a lot of bird dogging for me. So
That's it. Well, we appreciate the time, brother. Thank you for coming out. I know you got your hand in it. At the school? Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Melvin been trying to get me to do that for years.
Absolutely.
I'm like, man, I can't commit the time.
We'll make it work. Thank you. Huh? Oh, one question. Oh, I'm sorry.
First, thank you so much for coming, for giving your time. Really appreciate you being here. My name is Shay, and I've been thinking about
Steve.
getting my GC license because I got into real estate fairly new. I bought a duplex and paid a lot. I built a duplex on that lot, and then I bought 2 more lots. I'm going to build single-family homes on those. But I have no construction background,
The zero.
And my family's from Pittsburgh, so I don't have my dad here, like nobody to kind of. And so I wonder, with so much experience being a GC, investing, do you think that that's a good move, given maybe the time investment that would take for me to kind of master that, versus me just staying the investor and maybe keep just working with GCs and running quickly that way, maybe being able to do more volume versus being able to keep more money if I was my own GC?
Well, if that's something you have dreams of doing, I would say go for it. The test is not hard. It's just finding those that skilled labor, that honest skilled labor. And being that you're a woman is like a lot of guys pretty much feel like they could run circles around. So you would need to maybe get with somebody that you can trust, that's probably already a GC, and kind of let them show you the ropes for a while before you actually jump into it full-fledged. Bro, he was horrible.
He called the permit on my property, I didn't get it, and he never answered his phone. He never answered an email.
Yeah, they won't. They'll never answer email. If you call, they let the phone ring. They'll send you to another department. You get to the other department, it's like, I'm calling for plumbing. You didn't send me to electrical. Hey, I'm trying to get in touch with somebody in plumbing. We'll send you back. The phone just ring, get me back to, now I'm at a building inspector. Like I need plumbing. So, if you don't show your face down there, you'll never get no results.
I only need about 10 more to go now. 10 more people fired to make that department better. Cool. Well, let's give it up for John. I appreciate him.